All right, thank you. Right, I'll start sharing my screen, shall I? Find that video at the moment, but let's oops, there we are. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can.
Right, okay, well let's start the presentation then. Oops, that started at the end. Let's start at the beginning. Right, here we go.
Okay. Um, well, I'm Anne, and uh, both myself and David are of the Keratoconus Self Help and Support Association, which we call the Keratoconus Group for short. And we call Keratoconus KC for short because it's a name that isn't easy to pronounce and easy to remember. Um, so we're a charity that has existed for about 30 years now, um, which is there for people who have the condition, because as you can imagine, you've never heard of it. Most people have never heard of it. So when people are diagnosed with it, they're really quite confused and anxious about what the situation is. So the whole purpose of the charity is to encourage people with this condition to meet, share experiences, and to provide information to them. Okay, so if
Right, yeah, I would
I'll
change
move
slide.
over to today, we'll do a double act, David and I, if that's okay. That will maybe
Yeah.
keep people on their toes.
This is a very poor picture, actually, but it shows the cornea on the front of the eye. For a normal person, it's nice and smooth and a curve, but the cornea starts to weaken and it starts to form a cone, and that's what causes the problem. We'll say more about how that affects us in a bit, but basically. We're called the self-help, the Keratoconus Self-Help and Support Association for exactly what Anne said. People with the condition often found that they never met anyone else with it, and they never got to talk to anyone. And you'd only have a few minutes uh, with the optician, and then you're on your own to cope with it. So Anne started the charity um, to arrange meetings and share information. Um, the common thing about us is that we're all volunteers. We've all got the condition. So the charity survived just purely on volunteers with no outside money. And we've got a website and we just give people the opportunity to meet and talk to each other. The condition affects, we used to say 1 in 2,000, but actually, with more information coming out, we're discovering the figure is the incidence of keratoconus is much higher. In fact, it could be as much as 1 in 350 50 people. Um, how it comes about is a mixture of factors, partly genetic, partly environmental, and partly hormonal. Um, you need to have the right conditions and then for it to affect someone. So it's not purely genetic. It's just a combination of factors. And unfortunately, Anne and I have got that combination of factors. So we were diagnosed in our 20s, I think. I was diagnosed in my 20s anyway. Um, and it gets progressively worse as you age. Um, One of the things is eye rubbing. There's been a lot of research into keratoconus, and it, the evidence is quite strong that eye rubbing is a real cause of it. I know I used to really dig my hands into my eyes, and there's a lot of thought that this weakens the cornea. So if ever you see any children rubbing their eyes rigorously, then it's best to try and find a way to stop that. It comes on in teens, and early 20s. So it comes on a very difficult age when people are going to college, they're starting out in life. And one of the reasons I got involved really was because I met a few parents that worried about their teenage children. And I realized that I could tell them that they can have a full career with keratoconus. It's not going to ruin their lives, um, but it does cause problems. It's just something difficult that you have to live with. Uh, the name comes from the Greek term. It's for a cone-shaped cornea, um, and that's what causes the problem. Um, there's there's good news because now they've discovered a process called cross-linking, where what they do is they put a vitamin drop into the eye and they expose it to light, and that makes the fibers link together, and that makes the cornea much stronger. Um, and that's really ages the cornea. But once the corneas get stronger and it gets a bit older and stiffer, like our bones and our muscles, then the cornea stops deteriorating. So that strengthens the cornea, and that stops people getting to the stage that Anne and I got to, where we eventually needed transplants on our eyes. Um, so that's really good news. The mission we have now is to get people diagnosed very early. So this treatment only takes about half an hour, and it saves them a lifetime of pain and suffering with contact lenses and things like that. Um, I'm going a bit quick. Do you want to say anything about these subjects, Anne?
Yeah, sorry, I lost connection for a moment, so
That's all
I
right.
wasn't sure what was going on. Okay, so are we on the next slide or
Shall I carry on?
no? I'm happy to carry on, but
Right.
um, sorry, had you finished on the cross linking?
Well, unless you want to say something on cross-linking.
Sorry, I'm confused now. Um, yeah, so basically, this new treatment cross-linking has made a huge difference because now most people, when they're diagnosed, if they get the cross-linking treatment, then that will stop the condition progressing, and hopefully, as David said, I think they won't need the sort of treatments that we had to have. So the the next slide shows how the light rays coming into the eye are scattered by the irregular shape of the cornea. So what the effect of keratoconus is that instead of having one clear image, what we have is blurred multiple images of which overlap and go in different directions. What we actually see, obviously, is different with every person because every person gets the corneas distorted in a different way. So it's very individual, but basically it does interfere quite a lot with the vision. And if you can see the next slide, that shows that what we call ghosting, which is that because you've got several images on top of each other, you really don't get a clear image. And there's nothing that a spectacle lens can do to help that. So what it needs is specialist contact lenses. Do you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, I've used this slide to illustrate what we see. Um, you know, we see the picture of all the ghosted images around it, whereas a normal person will see just a clear A. And if you're being tested, they'll say, what is that letter? And you say A, and they say, fine, you can see that, but you can imagine if you're reading a book and all the letters are jumbled like this, it just page becomes a complete mess.
Mm.
And when it gets dark, it's even worse when the lights come on. All the images are blurred and overlaps, and it gets very confusing. This shows how the condition progresses. In the top left, you can see a group of chairs, and then as the condition deteriorates, the number of chairs increases, and it just gets worse and worse as the condition gets worse. Do you want to say something, Anne?
Okay, so when you put a contact lens on the eye, what that does is then actually create a smooth surface. So that then will actually correct the vision to a large extent. But whereas a spectacle lens, because it's not on the eye, doesn't do that. When you put a contact lens on the eye, it makes all the difference. And I mean, contact lenses are obviously our savior, but they can be painful if the fit isn't good. And they have to be specialist lenses, as we said. But there are now, compared to when David and I were diagnosed many years ago, there are lots of different lenses that can be used. So hopefully for most people, there is a solution. So there are rigid gas permeable lenses. There are special soft lenses for keratoconus. There's hybrid lenses which have a hard middle and a soft outer layer. There are what are called scleral lenses, which is what's on the picture, I think, which are much bigger than an ordinary lens and can be quite intimidating, I think, when you first look at them. But they sit outside the cornea, so they rest on the white of the eye, so they can be much more comfortable. And some people wear a combination of a soft lens underneath and a rigid lens on top, and that's called piggybacking. So all of these solutions have benefits and disadvantages. And then if it becomes difficult to tolerate contact lenses or they can't correct the vision anymore, then the sort of final option is surgery in the form of a corneal transplant. And again, I mean, this is because cross-linking hadn't been invented when David and I were diagnosed. Obviously, for us, our keratoconus progressed, and so we both had corneal transplants. Again, things are improving all the time, and there are now better techniques for the transplant. They don't have to remove as much of the corneal material, which means that there's fewer problems with rejection. So that's the situation. Okay, do you want to finish off, David?
Well, yeah. I mean, this is an example of one of our meetings. This is John up in Birmingham, who's got a very supportive group. And this is what Anne started. She started with few people in the reception at Moorfields meeting just to gather and talk. It affects a wide range of individuals, as you can see here, all types. It started in 91, and what we do is we issue a newsletter every 6 months rather, just to keep people informed. But the whole thing is life with keratoconus is really about compromises. There's no solution to it. There's no well, apart from cross-linking, which is really good. Before cross-linking, you just had to cope with contact lenses until they got really painful, and then we had to go for transplants, which Anne and I did 30, 40 years ago. Fortunately, I've managed to survive with glasses since then, but everyone's experience is different. Really, I think that's basically it. And unless you want to add anything. We're just a group of people that share our experiences. We have conferences, we have speakers. We recently had a lovely meeting in Moorfields where two people are doing some research into spectacles for keratoconus, and that research is quite promising. Um, so yes, I think that is. Does anyone have any questions about the condition? Have you ever heard of the condition?
No, I've got a question. Yeah, I've got a question.
Right.
When you have the cornea, my name's Kathy, when you have the cornea transplant, does that solve it, or what happens when you have the transplant? What does that do?
It depends. Everyone's experience is totally different. I had the transplant. I had one in 1985, 86, and that worked, but the surgeon said, "Oh, don't have another one just yet." And I survived for 10 years with very difficult because I had glasses for one eye and a contact lens for the other eye. And so some days I was looking out my right eye and some days I was looking out my left eye. And I was always falling over. It wasn't until I had the second eye operated on that I realized that I stopped falling over.
If you need the contact lens, then when they put the cornea in, did you still need the contact lens on top?
I needed one contact lens for one eye and the glasses for the other. When I had the other eye done, I survived without contact lenses. I survived with glasses and needed contact lenses, I believe, didn't you, Anne?
Yeah, for me it was different. My eyes were, it was partly that they were almost as bad as each other, so my operations were only two years apart. And in both cases I needed contact lenses afterwards. And the couple of years after the transplants was actually really difficult because when there was a time when I couldn't really see properly out of either eye. But anyway, I somehow survived and carried on working. But then I've met other people over the years when they've had a transplant and then they've been able to forget about keratoconus altogether because it's worked so well that they haven't even needed glasses, let alone contact lenses. So as David says, the experience is different, but on the whole, it's a really good option if you get to the stage of not being able to wear lenses.
Can I make one
Sorry.
As a child, I used to rub my eye.
Yeah, I did.
And I don't know,
do.
do you know if there's a reason why blind children would do that? Is it just is it a common thing? Because I used to do it, I got told off.
I mean, as David said, it depends. You have to, I think what they're thinking is that you have to have the sort of a susceptibility to have keratoconus, so maybe a combination of genes or something for it to make a difference. So some people can rub their eyes and it doesn't matter, whereas if you've got that set of genes, if you rub your eyes, it is going to matter. So it's a difficult sort of thing, and it's also a chicken and egg thing, because what we didn't say, I don't think, is that keratoconus is often associated with allergies. So a lot of people that have keratoconus also have eczema or hay fever or asthma. And so they have sensitive eyes. So that's one reason why, they may rub their eyes because of all those allergies. And then it becomes a sort of vicious circle because, then that can affect the cornea and make it thinner.
Does does dry eye, would that cause it? Because I've got that and I rub my eyes as well. Even now, still do.
It's an effect of keratoconus. It doesn't actually cause it as such, I don't think. And certainly, again, I'm not sure whether we covered this or not. It is a condition of young people. So it's it's really rare for people after the age of 50 to be diagnosed, though we are getting a few cases, but generally it's something that starts in the teens or the early 20s. So if you haven't developed keratoconus by then, you're very unlikely to ever have it.
The difficulty we face is that we go from extremes. And once we're wearing a contact lens, we can drive a car, we can do all sorts of things. But because they can become so painful, we have to leave them out. And once we leave them out, we can't even, we can be virtually, we could be certified as visually impaired. And I couldn't cross the road when I left my contact lens out. So I'd work normally during the day, and no one would be aware that there's anything wrong. I come out the office and the dust would hit my eyes. I'd have to take the lens out. And I had a friend that used to help me cross the road. And that's the difficulty we have is that people think, oh, why don't you put your glasses on? That doesn't work. So it's the fact that we're part-time, partially sighted, really.
And imagine people don't understand that. It's like some people who can see to read, but maybe can't see across the road. Public don't understand that. They think, oh, but you could see.
Yeah.
It's a complication for you when you can see sometimes, and sometimes you can't. It's difficult to educate the public, I would think.
Yeah, very difficult. So I suppose that's one of the things we need to do is make the public aware. But like they say, not all disabilities are visible.
So true.
I used to come home from work, take my lenses out, and I'd put a pinhole in a piece of cardboard to watch television. That was 40 years ago, and it's difficult to remember what it was like. But speaking to things like this, it brings it all back to me. So,
and of course, there are other conditions that affect eyesight, which are also sort of come and go. So, I have friends with MS, multiple sclerosis, and that can often affect the vision. But again, people can have times when they can see fairly well, and then they have an episode when their vision is very badly affected. So, but that's something that's very difficult to get over to other people, isn't it? That you can see some of the time and not others.
Can it cause complete blindness? It's Mandy speaking, by the way.
The only other person I ever met that had keratoconus, he was blind, and he said, I said, and I asked him about it, and he said it's through keratoconus, but that was years and years ago. It was in a school parents committee. So I'm going to answer this better, but I did actually meet a blind person that said it was through keratoconus.
I think that again, it's pretty rare, but I think the times that it can happen is if the corneal transplants go wrong. So again, I've encountered a few people where they've had multiple rejections and then the sight wasn't saved. So that would be the circumstances, I think, in which, or if I suppose if the condition wasn't treated at all. But I mean, these days, I think it's very different, and it would be picked up. But you can imagine if somebody didn't have any treatment. I mean, what can happen is when the cornea gets thinner and thinner, the back layer can split, and that causes what we call a hydrops, which is when the cornea gets flooded with liquid. And most of the time that is a temporary thing which clears itself eventually. But again, that for the time that it is there, that really makes you blind in that eye. I mean, I lost total sight in my left eye 10 years ago because the graft that I'd had 30 years ago failed. But I was lucky. I was able to have a what we call a regraft, so a second transplant was done. So for 3 months I had no sight out of that eye at all. All I could see was light.
Yeah. So you're learning all about different eye conditions then, are you?
Yes,
That's it. We've got someone from the Nystagmus network coming in next month.
Oh,
Right, that's interesting because that's another condition that affects youngsters, though that can happen later in life as well. But some children are born with it.
I'm one of them.
and actually, the effects of it are fairly similar. I've heard them talking about the effects of nystagmus. And how it affects the vision is fairly similar to how keratoconus affects our vision.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Cool, brilliant. Well, thank you both for talking to us.
Very interesting.
It is.
Yeah.
And we'll all know now as well if we have a new member come in and they've got keratoconus, we know now.
What it is.
Well, yeah, true.
Yeah.
We know where to send them anyway.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for your interest and wishing you all the best.
No, thank you.
Thanks for inviting us.
Thank you. Bye. Good. Bye, love.
I'll say bye-bye then. Thank you.
See you later. Bye.